My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC fight picks and DraftKings lineups run by MMA insiders and professional fighters. Every week, I join Dan Kramer and Nick Newell, two longtime professional fighters that have fought at the highest levels on the planet, as well as Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. So join us every single week for our full fight card breakdowns, our individual fight card breakdowns, our betting guide, and our DraftKings lineups. First up at UFC Vegas 33, we have Orion Cosce versus Philip Rowe. Cosce 7-0, obviously 5-0 in his last five. Philip Rowe 7-3, 4-1 in his last five, coming off of a loss. This is essentially wrestler versus grappler, and I distinguish the difference between wrestlers and grapplers, right? Wrestlers are wrestlers, and grapplers are looking for submissions and more of the jiu-jitsu game. Cosce is very strong, good, powerful wrestling. His fight IQ isn't always the best, and he will rely too much on his strength at times, which means sometimes he'll blow it in a scramble because he's looking to power through instead of worrying about where his hips are, and he's never been to a decision. He is not a decision guy. Philip Rowe, his striking is okay, but he does have a legitimate threat on his feet at times. He's very big for the division. He has very high volume. He does a great job using that length, using his range. His ground game is very good because of his length. And because he's good at range, he can use that to keep Cosce at the end of his punches. And then if it hits the ground, he's definitely the better grappler. This is an interesting matchup. The fact that Cosce is a 2-1 favorite is a little bit surprising to me. But what do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, Dan hadn't been here for a while. I don't know if you noticed, Dan, that Angelo reads off a teleprompter now, which is a lot of fun.
I got my notes in front of me, and it's much easier that way.
Yeah, well, I'm actually surprised that Cosce is such a big favorite. I see this more, not quite a pick 'em, because I think he should be the favorite with the wrestling, but I see this a little bit closer to 190, 150. And I have in my notes the same thing that you mentioned. I have written down that everything is power and that he can power out of positions. But like you said, that can get you in some bad spots too if you're just constantly relying on power rather than technique, especially against Rowe, who's going to have the length, those long legs, those long limbs on the ground. So I see Orion, and first of all, Orion is like one of the best names I've ever heard. I said when I saw Orion, I'm like, if I have a son, right? Hopefully I have a son one day. I'm going to name him Orion.
To make a man, Jacob, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm going to name him Orion. It just sounds like King Orion. So anyway, I think Orion should win this fight, but I'm just worried about him losing technique, losing position, and getting like armbarred or something weird like that. So I don't love him at $8,800. I think that's a little overpriced. He's not that good because he's just not that technical. But with his power and his finishing ability, you could have some good value there. So I think he should win, but I just don't have him in my lineup.
So Jacob going with the favorite, Danny Boy. What are your thoughts here? You going with the long, rangy jiu-jitsu guy?
Or... let me add one more point. I forgot. It was in my notes. I promise. I forgot.
Jacob's really trying to pull the I've been here. Dan hasn't.
Yeah. So anyway, Orion is a team alpha male, and we learned from who was it this past week that just caught somebody in a guillotine. They called them Team Guillotine is what Team Alpha was, what they call them. So he could, try and pull guillotines against Rowe if it's a scramble and get caught in some bad positions as well. So that's my only take. Sorry, Dan. Go ahead. If there's anything left, I don't know.
Well done. Yeah, no.
I think we covered it all. So we can just move on.
You guys covered a lot. I mean, this is, a fight. It's a tough one to call. I will say the value, I think, is on Rowe. I think he's live in this fight. I think you could get him for even better odds earlier in the week. I was almost going to jump on it, and I didn't. I don't even know that he's plus 150 anymore. It might even be closer. But yeah, Cosce or Cosce, however you say it, he's good. He's undefeated, obviously, but level of competition outside of his last fight on Contender Series, I mean, look at the records. It's like 2-4, 18-43. So, it's tough to really say how good these guys are going to be. You said he's at Team Alpha Male. I always talk about it. Younger guys who are training at good camps, they make big leaps in between fights. So sometimes they're kind of ahead of the betting line. So we could see Orion come out and look really good. But from what I've seen, Philip Rowe has been in the UFC. He fought Gabe Green. He lost, but he looked all right. He fought Leon Shabazian in the Contender Series. He won that fight. So I think he's had tougher fights. I think he's definitely live in this fight. So from a betting odds standpoint, I'm going to go with Rowe. And I think I'll probably pick him to win the fight too, in more of a pick 'em. But not confident either way on this one. I think both guys, this is a weird card. There's a lot of, we'll call it, inexperienced guys, up and coming guys. You don't know what you're going to get type guys.
Yeah.
Unreliable fighters who look great one fight, look awful the next fight. And let's be honest, there's a bunch of people here where it's winners probably staying, losers probably getting cut. So this is an interesting card in that sense.
Yeah, I completely. Last week was, I said it the whole time in all the live streams. Last week was probably the closest card I've ever seen. Every single fight could have gone any direction and nothing would have been shocking. This week, I think it's a little more clear. But like you said, there's so many fighters on this card that maybe don't even belong in the UFC or will be cut after this event. This is like a weird, they needed to fill a slot type event, but that does not mean there's not going to be ton fights and there's not money to be made. So
these are the ones where wild things happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You generally get exciting fights when there's matchups like this and there's a lot of intangibles. I hate to say it, it's probably an event where it feels like an event where they're going to, clean house a little bit and get rid of a few contracts and see who they want to keep.
Yeah, so my pick, I didn't give it before. My pick is Philip Rowe. I just think, Orion, he's got the power, he's got the wrestling, but that's kind of where that ends for me. I mean, he can't throw everything 1,000%. There's a lot of range to cover to get in there. And when he gets to the ground, if he has those low fight IQ moments and he's looking to power things, Philip Rowe's legitimately slick on the ground, super long, uses that well. So I think Rowe sort of keeps him at bay on his feet. I think it will absolutely get to the ground, and I think Rowe will have the advantage there. Obviously, the risk is Cosce takes him down, elbows in, hangs out on top the whole time. I don't see that. I'm not touching it for DraftKings. I do think Rowe wins. I think the odds are definitely far apart. And Monkey Knife Fight is tricky. All of the Monkey Knife Fight lines this week are tricky because they're much farther apart than usual. I think less more is the play because I think Orion's going to be looking to close that gap, get a takedown, be on the wrong side of some of the exchanges. So I think less than 88.5 for Orion, more than 48.5 for Philip Rowe. For everything, our bets, Monkey Knife Fights, promos, free money, all of that, WeWantPicks.com.